Anthony Hopkins sat quietly on a weathered bench overlooking the Irish Sea, the wind combing through his silver hair like an old friend. It was just after dawn. No entourage, no reporters, no assistants fluttering around him with coffee or scripts, just the rhythm of the waves, a thermos of tea, and a long silence he had grown to love. At 87, he had lived the lives of many men. Oscar winner, recovering alcoholic, composer, philosopher, painter, knight of the realm. But the identity that surprised most people, especially in today's hyper-connected world, was that Anthony Hopkins had almost no friends. "I'm not lonely," he once said. "I'm just not crowded." It wasn't bitterness. It wasn't fear. It was peace. Throughout his life, people had asked him why he kept his circle so small, why he wasn't part of the celebrity social scene, why he didn't throw parties or attend many unless required. His answer was always the same: "I don't need it." Hopkins had learned something most men only discover late in life, if ever, that emotional security doesn't come from social validation, it comes from inner calm. And more often than not, the men who seem to have the fewest friends are the ones who have done the most inner work. As a child in Port Talbot, Wales, Hopkins was solitary by nature. While other boys played rugby and scraped their knees in playgrounds, he sketched in notebooks and lost himself in books. His father, a stern baker with strong hands and little patience for emotion, misunderstood his son's quiet nature. "I was called a loner," Hopkins recalled. "They said I was strange. The labels hurt, but they also gave him room to think, to watch, to develop the emotional depth that would later allow him to disappear into the souls of complex characters, from Hannibal Lecter to Odin to Pope Benedict. In his 20s, he dove into acting with the Royal National Theatre, but never fell into the backstage camaraderie that so many young actors crave. Even then, he preferred one-on-one conversations, or no conversation at all, to noisy green-room banter. By the time he became a household name in the 1990s, he had already walked through fire. Alcoholism had nearly stolen his career. His first marriage had crumbled, and fame, he learned, was a mirage. "I found that fame is just a bubble," he said. "You're surrounded by people who want something from you, and when you no longer serve that purpose, they vanish." So he withdrew. He stopped chasing relationships that didn't feel mutual. He said no more often. He spent days in silence at his home in Malibu, painting, composing music, and walking his dog along the cliffs. And slowly, something unexpected happened. He didn't feel lonely. He felt free. Hopkins began to speak openly about solitude, not as a symptom of isolation, but as a sign of self-possession. In an age where men are told to build networks, maintain friendships, and constantly stay connected, he offered a different message. It's okay to step away, not because you're antisocial, but because you're full, because your mind no longer craves outside noise to feel real. He wasn't without companionship. He had his wife, Stella, who he described as the calm in my chaos. But even that relationship, he admitted, was built on the foundation of space and silence. "She lets me be," he once said, "and I let her be. We don't have to fill every moment with talk. That's love to me." Psychologists often say that the men who require constant affirmation from their social circles are the ones who struggle most with emotional security. They seek approval because they doubt their own worth. But men like Hopkins, men who have wrestled with their demons, stared into the abyss of failure, and come back stronger, tend to walk a quieter path. They aren't trying to prove themselves anymore. Hopkins no longer needed anyone to clap when he entered a room. He had clapped for himself when he survived alcoholism, when he went 20 years sober, when he finally forgave his father. His validation came from doing the hard work of being himself, and that kind of man, the emotionally secure man, is often misread. "They think you're arrogant," he said in an interview, "or cold, but it's not that. You've just learned to protect your peace." Hopkins once met a young actor backstage at a play who confessed he felt lonely because he only had one or two close friends. Hopkins placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Then you're doing it right." The young man laughed awkwardly. "But everyone else seems to have a whole tribe." Hopkins replied, "Crowds are loud. Listen too long and you'll forget your own voice." That moment stuck with the young actor for years. Years later in an interview he said, "That was the day I stopped apologizing for keeping my circle small." There is a myth about men that strength means always standing in a group, leading a pack, surrounded by allies. But Hopkins showed a different version of strength, the strength to sit alone in a room and be at ease with who you are. He still answered fan mail personally, still recorded uplifting messages during the pandemic, reminding people that better days were ahead. Still shared his paintings online with no expectation of praise. But he didn't cling to people. He didn't collect friendships like trophies. The ones who stayed through his quiet years, his silences, his grief, were the ones worth keeping. And that, he believed, was enough. One afternoon, a journalist asked him, "Do you wish you had more close friends?" Hopkins looked out the window before answering. "No," he said. "Friendship isn't about quantity. It's about peace. I have peace. That's my companion." And he smiled, the kind of smile you only learn after years of shedding what doesn't serve you. Because in the end, men who walk alone aren't always lonely. Sometimes they're just walking home to themselves.